All right, welcome everybody. Welcome to our live cast. And we are here to talk about oneness viewed as two. So we have an exciting inquiry tonight for everybody. So let's just jump in with a little bit of an intro. So the life principle or truth of being functions in the withinness of consciousness, one's own thinking, being, one's own awareness of God is his savior. So nothing can save man from the task of saving himself, since the self of man is God and living the life is self-realization.
Capital self.
Right, it was capital SELF, but capital self-realization. And nothing can save you from that. Truth doesn't create a slave morality, nor a morality of limitation or imitation.
Imitation.
So can you measure the value of the realization that the Christ, the divine manifestation of God, is your inherent divinity, the principle of you? The whole difficulty with the health, wealth, happiness, morals of the human race is the mistaking of the interpretation of Christ for the Christ, and reacting to the symbol of the interpretation as if it were reality.
Yeah.
So you want to say anything more about that?
Yeah, because what that's saying is we tend to be a reaction machine to our language world.
Yeah.
Instead of allowing it to be.
Right.
So we can stay with our awareness.
Yep. Okay. Now, the introduction goes on with the idea the Christ is the existence of all symbols. All myth or symbol is factual as interpretation portraying the idea, but pure illusion when separate from idea. When the myth is taken to be personal history instead of identity, it becomes mere writing in the sand.
Yep.
And that's from Margaret Laird's Life's Demonstrations on page 22 and 23. That's a booklet that we're using in today's discussion. So when we look at the discussion, the subject, oneness viewed as two, part of it is what you just said, which is we buy into the picture and we started ascribing a whole bunch of stuff. Oh, this is good. Oh, this is bad. Oh, isn't that great? And as if all that picture stuff was reality.
Yep.
So we're seeing it out there. We're not seeing it as the world we walk through manifesting as exactly what we need is not necessarily the way we view the world around us.
Yeah, or ourselves.
Right. Right.
Yep.
So are you saying we view ourselves as human being, Kim, in a world of others and things and stuff, and that's the two?
Well, the action, if you start with the fundamental that the action of the God idea is man.
Mm-hmm.
But we don't live ourselves that way. When we tend to either exalt our human living as if it were wonderful and all that, or when we are disgusted with it, we don't like it, we would like to change it, we begin to manipulate the language to fit our pictures.
Right.
Either way, we have lost ourselves in our own understandable language rather than looking at what the language is identifying, which is our own being as divine presence. Our language world identifies our own divine being in understandable form. But we don't treat it that way. We treat it like, darn it, I wish the car wouldn't always do that. Or Why does she go over there? She ought to be over here. You know, there's always something we would like to change or fix or complain about or get rid of or whatever.
Right.
And it's only when we leave it alone that it's free to shift. Because when you leave it alone, it doesn't have any presence. The only presence it has is you making it present. You know, fussing about it, wishing it were different, figuring out how to change it, influencing it, manipulating it, anything but leaving it alone.
Right.
And yet it's leaving it alone that allows it to shift.
Right. So what you're saying is don't fuss.
Yeah. Give up your concern about the picture, the language world, which doesn't exist the way you see it.
Right.
So just leave it alone. Like the hell with it, Margaret said.
Yep.
And then begin to look at what's actually going on. You know, the fundamental principle of science is that all is infinite mind manifest, period. That's it. So the God idea manifesting is all that's going on ever. And we have it looking like something good, bad, right, wrong, etc.
Right. And we give it all that meaning and all that stuff.
We build a whole structure around it.
Mm-hmm.
And then we fuss about the structure that we're building.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah. Yeah. All right. So what I want to let everybody know is you're welcome to enter comments, questions, whatever you want, right in that comment box, whether you're on YouTube or Facebook, enter those in and we will get to those and reply also. So we love interaction. If you guys want to ask a question or anything like that, please feel free to do that. If you're on YouTube and you haven't yet subscribed to our channel, I want to invite you to subscribe. It helps us get the word out more broadly to other people if we have more likes and more subscribes. So, so that's all I'm going to say about that.
Promise?
All right. Promise. I promise. That's all I'm going to say about that. Okay, so let's dive in. Here we go. So in Life's Demonstrations, Margaret Laird wrote on page 23, the person is the identity of the Christ.
Yep.
So we don't relate to that. In general day-to-day living, we don't live consistent with that or with the apprehension of that or the understanding of that. Would you say that's accurate?
Yeah, for sure it's accurate. We think that the stuff we look at and fuss with, including our own personal identity picture, we think that's something we have to manage, fix, change, arrange, revise, organize, manipulate. Yeah.
Right. So when we're doing all that fussing, what are we missing out on?
We're missing out on what's real. We're living in a world of make-believe, la la land.
And if we were clear about what's real, what would be different?
We would allow it to be. We would not take issue with appearances. We would be the living of the fact that all is infinite mind, infinitely manifest, here, now, however it looks.
Mm-hmm.
Because perfection is that ground of being.
Okay.
Whereas the ground of believing that what you see is what you get has you be a victim of what you're making up about what's going on.
All right.
And as a victim, you get worried.
Yeah.
You're going to fix it and change it because you don't like being a victim.
Yeah.
And the way to not be a victim is to allow it to be.
Just leave it alone.
Oh, that's the way it looks. All right, on we go.
So what I'm gathering in all of this is that to the degree that I can leave it alone is the degree of freedom I can actually experience, the degree of joy that I can actually be present to.
Yeah. And I like the way you word that because the joy and the freedom and the peace and the love are all present all the time.
Mm-hmm.
It's your choice whether you experience it that way or not.
Mm-hmm. And the more we fuss, the less we experience it that way.
Yeah. You
Okay.
slam the door in your own face.
Right. There you go. Okay. So reason number 1 to pay attention. All right. So the myth becomes a fiction only when it is identified as human history.
Yep.
Say more about that. The myth becomes a fiction only when it's identified as human history.
Yeah,
So
because
if
what
you
is
don't
the myth?
identify it as human history, then it's not fiction. It's not
Well,
fiction.
what is the myth? It's my current view of the God idea. But if I think it's that thing over there, or this terrible thing that's happening right now, or on, what I want, what I wish,
Right.
what I'd like to see, if I think it's all of that stuff, instead of the identity of the perfection present,
Yeah.
then I'm a victim of all the stuff I've made up.
Okay. All right. All right. So then in Science and Health on page 174, starting on line 20, Mary Baker Eddy wrote, truth is revealed. It needs only to be practiced.
Yeah. You know, truth is revealed, and this is the way I'm seeing it. So what about that?
Right. Well, then didn't Margaret Laird say, pay attention to your seeing?
That's right. Exactly. Pay
So if
attention.
this is how I'm seeing it, rather than saying, why does it have to look like this out there? I need to pay attention to my seeing.
You want to pay attention, yeah, so you can see what's present
Right.
instead of what you're making up about it.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Right. Okay. And then where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise, says the English poet, and there is truth in his sentiment.
And that's a quote from Science and Health.
Yeah.
Mary Baker Eddy.
Yep. On page 175, line 32. So where ignorance is bliss, 'tis folly to be wise.
Yep. See, if I don't know that it shouldn't look that way, I'll leave it alone. It's my idea that it shouldn't look that way. I should fix it.
Right.
I should move it. I should change it. I should arrange it differently.
Right.
I should organize it, manage it.
Right. That reminds me of the whole notion of beginner's mind.
Of what?
Beginner's mind,
Yeah.
as opposed to expert mind. Expert mind knows it all, knows what it should and shouldn't look like, blah, blah, blah. But beginner's mind is like curious. It's like, oh, okay, it doesn't know enough to know that it maybe shouldn't be that way. So you create a whole different possibility when you come at things with a fresh perspective.
That's right. So the beginner's mind really would be one that's uncluttered with the beliefs.
Yeah, where ignorance is bliss.
Yep.
It's folly to be wise. All right. Now, in Mind is the Athlete on page 127, you wrote, all awareness is the reflective presence of consciousness.
Yeah.
And when you say reflective presence, it's the reflection of present. So as soon as it shows up, it's in the past.
Yeah, but what's showing up is what it's talking about.
Is the reflective presence of consciousness.
Yeah.
Except for we don't
It's not something sitting out there to upset me.
Right. But we hardly ever acknowledge that thing that you think is sitting out there ready to upset you or whatever is the reflective presence of consciousness. And your view is the only way you can see it right now.
I'm making up all the garbage.
Right. Right.
Yeah.
Okay.
Right.
Reality expressed is authentic, genuine, and non-conceptual substance, imperishable and immutable.
Yep.
So what is non-conceptual substance? It just means substance is there with no concept.
That's right. Because substance is there with no concept. I make up the concept.
Right. But would we recognize substance that has no concept?
Oh, you better believe
so
I would.
Alien, or would it be so
You know how
alien?
it looks when I recognize it?
How?
Peace and joy and power.
Because you're not adding any meaning in that moment.
That's right. I'm just allowing it to be.
Got it. Okay. All right. On Life's Demonstration, page 23, Margaret Laird wrote, when you abstract the idea from the myth or interpretation, it becomes an experience of your own being.
Yeah.
You know, the only thing I can relate this to, well, I can relate to a lot of things, but the thing that came right to mind was when I could sit still in the morning, say up at the lake or whatever, and just look out over the lake. In that stillness, there is no myth or interpretation. There's just being present.
Yeah. And the thing is, everything is present all the time.
Right.
But when I get in there and fuss with the way it looks, or I want it to be a different color or a different size,
right,
or not be there at all, I'm setting myself up as a language object struggling to fix things.
Got it. Yeah. And then life gets tough.
And it should, you see.
Right, because it's a wake-up call to
That's
who
right.
you're actually being and relating to yourself as.
We don't appreciate it, but it should be that way.
Exactly. Like, get out of here.
Yeah.
The chair is never a material object, but viewed materially. The chair is a static lump of stuff. Viewed as idea, it becomes a dynamic event, an experience of mind. The value of the chair is in viewpoint, not in the chair.
That's right.
That's true of how you look at life, period.
Anything.
Yeah.
Everything that comes up,
right.
Actually.
Yeah, that's a good. It's not about the chair. The value of the chair is in the viewpoint.
That's right. You know, just think of somebody coming from a different planet walking into your living room. They never heard of a chair.
Right.
It would just be a lump of stuff, wouldn't it?
Yeah.
Yeah. Or else they would decide it was a good place to put the dog. Or,
Right.
you know,
Right.
It has no fixed meaning except what you give it.
Right. And what we give it by consensus, I suppose.
Well, what you give it yourself is your consensus.
Right. Right. And in Unity of Good, Mary Baker Eddy wrote on page 8, starting on line 5, what you see, hear, feel is a mode of consciousness and can have no other reality than the sense you entertain of it.
And that's a wonderful statement.
Yeah, it is. It's all what you make up. It's all whatever you're going to entertain about that thing is what you brought to the picture, what you added to it, not what was there.
Yep.
And the other thing is, I remember, a course that I was in where it was like, this is what that means. Well, could you have it mean anything else? And I
You
thought,
can have it mean anything you want to, but it doesn't
right,
make it true.
But you gotta, right. But that was the whole point. It's like, if I could have it mean this, well, could I have it mean anything else? Well, let me think about that. Well, I suppose I could have it mean this. Well, good. What else could you have it mean? And pretty soon you've got this array of what you could have it mean. And you start to get the folly of any one of them being right.
Well, what you get is your manipulative effort.
Right. It's the sense you entertain of it. So what are you going to entertain? And then you could back up from that and say, well, what serves you? Entertain something that's empowering, at least.
What would be a spiritual fact?
Right.
Rather than a belief system.
Right. Yeah. Okay, cool. Destroy the mental sense of the disease, and the disease itself disappears. Destroy the sense of sin, and sin itself disappears.
Now, that's a quote from Margaret's book, and I didn't note down where I got that.
Right. Right. So
Sorry.
that's in Christian Science Re-Explored?
It's from the Life's Demonstration.
Oh, Life's Demonstration. Okay.
Yeah.
All right. And then in Mind is the Athlete on page 127, you wrote, cosmic mind manifests intelligence, wisdom, and omniscience as its identity.
Yeah. So if this is true, since all is infinite mind, if mind manifests intelligence, wisdom, and omniscience as its identity, if that's true, why would I try to fix it?
Right.
Or change it? It's ignorance that has you fuss around with the way it looks to you.
Right.
You're just revealing your own inability to identify yourself accurately, to identify your experience accurately, to identify the events of everyday living accurately. You think that just by chance something goes nutty? No. It's all up to me.
Right.
And it doesn't go nutty because you came over to my house and did something. It's because I lived it that way.
Yeah.
You know, Margaret somewhere says that the belief in others is the refusal to see that all of my world is an aspect of myself.
Mm-hmm.
I am the world I walk through.
Yeah.
Yeah.
All form is a view of a non-visible, self-identifying reality.
Yep. That's also from my book.
Yep. Yeah, that's more discussion. Page 128, Mind is the Athlete.
Yep.
All right. Now, and still continuing with life's demonstration on page 23, the Christ story is the story of spiritual evolution, man's discovery of himself. And I know that a lot of times you've told me in different conversations we've had over the years that it's all self-discovery.
Yeah, that's exactly what our human living is, our laboratory of discovering ourselves.
Mm-hmm.
Who am I and what's it all about?
Mm-hmm.
Because the language world I walk through is of my own making.
Right.
And what it is for me is a picture of what I think is so. Because the minute I don't think it's so, it shifts.
Right.
Because it keeps up with whatever it is I'm making up about it.
Right.
Or seeing about it. And when I can leave it alone and just allow it to be, it functions perfectly, meeting the human need because it's divine love in action.
Right.
It's that anyway, but if I don't see it, I don't live it.
Right. Right. We go right down the primrose path with all of the judgments and and this and that until we get a bigger wake-up call that has us go, ooh.
And then I go along saying, why does this always happen to me?
Right. Right.
Because I'm the one present in my life.
Yeah, exactly. That's the thing of, you take yourself with you wherever you go.
That's right.
All right. In Science and Health on page 518, not 5180. I don't think there's that many pages, but 518, line 8.
I have 180.
Oh, line 180. Okay, good. 180. Then ignore the 5 on the other side.
I didn't see it. 180, line 8.
Right, exactly. But if you look at the screen, it'll say page 5180 because I missed getting rid of the 5.
Oh.
So,
sorry.
anyways, it's line 180, starting on line 8. In science, one must understand the resuscitating law of life. This is the seed within itself bearing fruit after its kind.
Yep.
Say more about that, like resuscitating law of life.
Yeah.
I know it's clear as pie to you, but it's like clear as mud to me. So go ahead and let's take that apart a little bit. Just walk me through that in language that I can understand.
Well, the resuscitating law of life would be that all is infinite mind, whole, perfect, complete right now. Always has been, always will be.
Okay.
And my finding fault with it gets me into the garbage.
Right.
You've got a belief about it, and you're going to go with your belief and then wonder why all this stuff happens to you.
Right.
You know?
Right.
Yeah.
So if we look at the next sentence, this is the seed within itself bearing fruit after its kind.
Yeah. Exactly.
I
Like,
know. Keep going. Dig it.
yeah,
Just
like if I plant a seed for a flower,
yeah.
it comes up as a flower.
Okay.
If I plant a seed of dissatisfaction, it comes up as hell on earth.
Right.
If I plant a seed of criticism, of believing that something out there is doing something to something over here, I've got a divided world that is not fun.
Yep.
Has all kinds of stuff going on that we call wake-up calls.
Yeah.
But we don't like them.
Right.
But without them, we'd be in a deeper pit, you know?
Yeah. Got it. Okay. That makes it very much clearer for me. Thank you.
Mm.
And in Mind is the Athlete on page 127, you wrote, when no concept obscures individual vision, then language, the human view, occurs authentically as an experience of the eternal.
Yep. When I don't have stuff, the language world, real, when I can see that this is just a point of view. Reality, whole, perfect, complete, is the presence of the God idea in action, which I call man.
Mm-hmm.
That's all that's ever going on.
Yeah.
But if I don't see that, then I have for myself a wake-up call that says, come on, this isn't what's here. Take another look.
Right.
Get yourself straightened out here.
Right.
And you do find yourself discovering some dimension of awareness, some opportunity to see a new point of view,
Mm-hmm.
some opening for light in the dark tunnel you're wandering through.
Mm-hmm.
When that occurs, if you can allow it to be, your whole experience is full of light.
Right.
That glimpse that was actually accurate for what's present just fills up the whole space. And you
Right.
find yourself with, oh, well, I can relax now. Everything's all right.
Right.
I
And
don't have,
you could have relaxed the whole time.
could have, should have, would have.
Right.
Okay.
All right. And then finally, Albert Einstein said, the world that we have made as a result of the level of thinking we have done thus far creates problems that we cannot solve at the same level of thinking at which we created them.
Yep.
And there's a typo on created because it's created them.
Right. I'm sorry about
So,
that.
at any rate, so yeah, this is a brilliant statement. I love this statement. You
Yep.
can't, we don't solve the problems with the same level of thinking which we created them, but with infinity going, right? All the
Yeah.
time. You're never
I looked at that and I thought, if infinity is what's present, which it is, since it's one of the characteristics of reality, if infinity is what's present, nothing is ever repeated.
right.
Nothing is ever duplicated.
Mm-hmm.
Nothing is ever, what's the word I want for that? It's never limited. It's inexhaustible.
Well, then it would also never be the same.
It can't be
Right.
because it never repeats.
Right. So if it can't ever be the same, then that level of thinking, once it's done, it's done.
Yeah, and the value of seeing a little glimpse of that one is that we stop trying to outline how it should look. We're willing, any shift at all becomes, well, okay, let's look at it that way for a while.
Right.
And then it shifts again. All right, on we go, and on we go, and on we go. But trying to force it to be like it was yesterday, it really leaves you in the ditch.
Right. Well, the things that came up for me as you were talking is just like joy, peace, freedom,
Order,
willingness,
abundance.
willingness, curiosity. I mean, if you think about what do you most want to what do you most want to experience in living? That's a whole list. And it's all from just letting it alone.
It's letting the picture alone
Yeah.
and staying present to the idea.
Yes.
Yeah.
So to the degree you can do that, you got that going on. All right.
Yeah, and then to the degree that you can do that, what you're doing is living the one fact of perfection and allowing it to look however the language looks,
Yes.
with no reaction.
Right.
And with no desire to manage it, fix it, correct it, etc.
Right.
Yeah.
Yeah, it's just life moving right on, and you walking right on and rocking right through it.
Yeah, and that happens in spurts for all of us. We've all had the experience of just moving along and everything's flowing.
Right.
And then you get to this, whoops, and you realize you've got a stumbling block here. And that stumbling block is called Betty. Get her out of the way and it goes smooth again.
Right. Very good.
Margaret had something when she said, get rid of the practitioner, get rid of the patient, and all is well.
Right. Very good. All right. If there's no questions or anything else, is there anything that you want to say beyond that to sum it all together?
Nobody had a question.
Nope.
So everybody understood perfectly, and I'm delighted.
Right, exactly. So what I'll say is that, there's a couple things. It's like it's completely up to us. Freedom, self-expression, joy, willingness, curiosity, all of those things are completely up to us, available any instant. We want to call it forth by acknowledging the divinity of what's present.
Well, the experience of it is up to you. The presence of it is always, always.
Right. Okay. What she said. All right. Anyways, that's all we've got for today. We'll see you next week at 5 p.m. Pacific and 7 p.m. Central next Tuesday. So we'll see you then. Until then, if you haven't subscribed to our YouTube channel, please subscribe. Share this with friends. If you have any others that would make a difference to listen to it, go ahead and share it. And until then, we'll see you next week. Stay willing, stay open, and know that it's all one thing going on. Oneness viewed as one. All right. See you later.
Thank you.